Hello, my name is Haley, and I'm 22 years old. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about a very complicated and confusing time in my life. You see, I've never had a normal family experience. My parents split up before I was born and fought endlessly over my surname. My dad sued me when I was a child, which led to an insane trial that lasted from the time I was a few months old until I was 5. Growing up in that family wasn't easy, and now that I'm in prison, I can see why I've made some choices of mine, especially after my mom told me a secret she had kept from me my whole life about what my dad has done. But before I continue with my story, hurry up and subscribe to this channel, or all your friends will know your most embarrassing secrets. So, she was in the hospital for only a few days while my father was trying to reach her. When she got back home, she found him waiting for her there. Mom called the cops and had my father removed from the house. A few months later, my father sued to have my name changed. The thing was, he didn't sue my mom, he sued me. My mom had to dress me up and take me to all sorts of trials when I was only a few months old. The process was stretched out for so long and was all over the news thanks to my father's lawyers. The trials went on for years, and they were anything but civil. The public was fascinated by our family drama, and by the end of the first year, protests started to form outside of the courthouse and sometimes outside our home. As you can imagine, this was not a great way to grow up. The trials finally ended when I was 5 years old, when the judge yelled out, "Enough is enough. I will not let this go on any longer." He declared that I could choose my last name, as I was old enough to speak for myself now. It was a nice thought, but now I wish he let an adult help me instead, because I chose the last name Glitter Pony. Going through high school as Haley Glitter Pony wasn't easy. I was always the brunt of the jokes. I had a few friends, but not many, and they didn't stick around. My mom and I moved around a lot, trying to get away from our past. The more we moved, though, the harder it was for my mom to get a job. She started to blame me for it, and we fought all the time. We lived in a new city every year, sometimes 2 a year, and she always threw it in my face. By the time I was in high school, she had to work 2 or 3 jobs to support us. She left well before I was up in the morning and came home extremely late at night, exhausted and cranky. I'd ask her how her day was, and she'd always respond with some level of disdain. Most commonly, "I used to be a nurse before you and your drama came along." I would do my best to sit in silence or leave the room, but once she was in her room with her TV on, I snuck out. It didn't matter where I went. I could just even go sit in a park. I just had to get out and do it on my own terms. One day, I met some people my age in an alley hanging out. They were clearly part of the tough crowd, and I wasn't sure that I could convince them I belonged enough for them to talk to me. I did everything I could think of to convince them I was just like them. I talked tough and even lied and said I had done a bunch of stuff I hadn't, like shoplifting. They saw right through me, laughed at every word that came out of my mouth. But apparently, I was entertaining enough to have earned their attention, even if it was only for the time being. They invited me to a job with them. They said they had to keep it vague so as not to incriminate me. I was pretty sure that taking me along was far worse incrimination than knowing the whole plan, but I wasn't going to ruin this opportunity. We went to a jewelry shop just around the corner, not even a block away. They handed me a rock as they surveyed the area and got a lay of the land. "Here's the plan. You throw that rock in the window of the shop at the end of this street. It's going to set off an alarm. You run down the street and meet us in the alley on the right 3 blocks down," the obvious leader said. "So, what are you going to do?" I asked, not feeling great about this idea. "The less you know, the better. Now go." I had never done something illegal like that before, but it sounded so exciting. I ran to the end of the street and identified the shop they were talking about. I looked around and made sure the coast was clear before doing the job assigned to me. I looked at the rock in my hand and then through the window of the shop. I felt bad about it, but I excused it by saying they probably had insurance and the owners were probably abusive to their employees anyway. No one's innocent, right? "What are you waiting for?" I heard coming from down the street. It was now or never. I threw the rock and a piercing alarm began to sound. I ran faster than I've ever run before. I did my best to count the blocks so I knew I was in the right alley. But my heart was pounding so fast and I was so full of adrenaline that I couldn't think straight. I stopped in the first alley I found, careful to crouch down behind anything I could find and keep to the shadows. A few minutes later, I heard sirens blaring and saw blue and red lights go flashing by. At least they wouldn't find me, I thought. I hid there for about 5 more minutes before I saw the leader of the group run past the alley. I decided that it was better to just stay where I was and lie low until I could get back home undetected. I never saw any of the other members of the group rush by. I thought they must have run the other way, or worse, got caught. When I got home, there were only a few hours left before I would have to get ready for school. I was too amped up on adrenaline to sleep. So I just laid in my bed, vibrating with the excitement of what I had just done. My mom never noticed I was gone, and I saw the start of a beautiful, beautiful thing. I snuck out every night after that, and I got better at it the longer I did it. I had a system. I never went to the same place twice, never talked to the same people, and always tried something completely new, often risky. I tried not to get involved in group activities like the first night. That was a rookie mistake. Some nights, I just wandered the streets to see if I could find anything better than the prison that was my house. Sometimes I'd find new people to chat with, mostly groups of homeless people, and I would often put on a new persona each night. No one could recognize me in the dark, which was something that I liked. One night, someone did recognize me though, and it caused me to break all of my rules. I wasn't expecting to ever come across him again, but once I did, there was no getting out of it. I was trapped. Nothing was ever the same after that night. I was walking down a new street in the more residential part of the city when I got a feeling that someone was following me. I kept my cool, being sure to make nothing at all seem out of the ordinary. I listened carefully and identified the sound of the footsteps moving at the same pace as mine, not too far behind me. I took a deep breath and picked up my pace, trying not to panic. I couldn't possibly imagine who might be following me. I had done all sorts of unspeakable things during my night excursions at this point, but I had always been careful to remain unidentifiable. Who was following me? I kept walking with my eyes glued to my feet and the sidewalk. If I just kept to myself and walked quickly, maybe I could get myself out of this situation safely. I couldn't have been more wrong. As I turned the next corner, I felt a hand get a firm grip on my shoulder and pull me backwards. I had been walking so fast that the shock almost caused me to fall over. The grip never loosened, though. I started to scream, but before I could muster a sound audible enough for anyone close by to hear it, a hand covered my mouth tightly. "Keep quiet," a familiar voice said sternly. The person pulled me into a dark alley and pinned me against the wall. There wasn't enough light for me to identify who it was, but I knew that voice. Who was this person? "Look, I'm not gonna hurt you. We need to talk, but in order for us to do that, I need you to not scream. Can you do that?" I nodded my head as best I could, and he freed my mouth. I didn't scream, and he let out a sigh of relief. "You don't know my name, but we met a few weeks ago," he sighed. "I handed you a rock." I was confused for a minute before it hit me. This was the ringleader of the robbery on my first night sneaking out. But how did he find me? "Look, I just need enough money to bail my friends out, that's all. Without my crew, there's no chance in hell I'll get enough. I need some help." "What is it exactly you want me to do?" I still didn't have the slightest clue how I could be of any help to him at all. "I won't ask you to do what I do, that's too much. But if you could just keep being a distraction for me, maybe I can pull enough jobs to get them out of jail." "If you don't join them there first," I said with a little more sass than I had intended. "Hey, I have to try, don't I?" I respected his loyalty to his friends, but I didn't think his plan could ever work. I never expected what would happen next. I followed him down the street to the store he intended to rob. "What do you want me to do?" "Like last time, I need you to break a couple of windows, then run like hell." I only broke one window and I wasn't too crazy about it. I lied. "They've got insurance and all the owners are all major jerks, if that helps." "You're just saying that. There's no way you know all of these store owners," I said, calling his bluff. "All the rich are jerks," he said, handing me 3 large rocks. I took the rocks and sighed deeply. What choice did I have? I confirmed which stores to hit, so I was sure an alarm would sound. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and ran the fastest I've ever run in my whole life. I took aim as I ran and made sure to throw each rock with enough force to truly break the windows. I didn't stop running until I was only a few streets from my house. I thought about hiding out and watching to see if he had enough time to get away, but I didn't want to risk it. When I got home, my mom was sitting in the living room waiting on me. She had turned all the lights off and hidden my room so that when I snuck back in the window, I'd think I'd gotten away with it again. As both my feet touched the ground, a light flicked on and my mom appeared. "Just where were you all night?" my mom said, sounding madder than I've ever heard her be. I swallowed hard and steeled myself. I could handle this. "Is that any of your business?" I asked, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Excuse me," my mom yelled. That was definitely the wrong thing to say, but I didn't back down. I couldn't. "I said, is that any of your business?" I said with an attitude. "You little," she yelled, unable to say the word I knew she wanted to. "What in the world has gotten into you? You were never a walk in the park, but my God." I was never a walk in the park? Try being blamed for something that happened to you when you were a kid. I wish I could storm out, but she stood between me and the door, and it was my room. I had to just stand my ground. I don't blame you for that. I blame your father. I've told you that. I do blame you for this attitude and your recent behavior, though. That's for damn sure. You've said that, but you've never once acted like it. Get out of my room, Mom. It's far too late to pretend like you care now. I ran to my bedroom and slammed the door, collapsing on the bed in a sobbing heap. Later, I heard my mom talking in the other room. I creeped to my door and cracked it open so I could listen in on her conversation. I know, Mom, but I just can't tell her. It's not right, I heard her say. It was bad enough that the trial went on long enough for her to remember it. I'm not going to let her know that anything could be worse. My heart started beating faster and faster. What could be worse than that? Look, I'm not going to tell her that her father assaulted me. I'm not. She's already traumatized enough. I did my best to keep this away from her as much as possible and let her have a normal childhood. She already has a bad enough view of her father. She deserves to have at least something to hold on to. I pushed the door closed gently and sunk to the floor. I hugged my knees and started crying harder and harder. How could I have been such a bad daughter? I had to do something for her. I had to get her forgiveness. I made a plan to steal a diamond ring and matching earrings from one of the jewelry stores I had seen the boy rob. I knew how to create a distraction for them, where the things were, and the way in and out without getting caught. I had observed it happening enough. The job went off without any complications at all. I conveniently found the boy I previously helped hanging out in the same alley where he was the first night I had seen him. He agreed to be my distraction since I had helped him before. He offered to pull off the job for me, but I didn't trust him to give me the items he had stolen. When I got home, I wrapped the beautiful jewelry I'd gotten in a nice gift box. Since I had stolen them, they weren't in one of the jeweler's boxes, so I dug around my room in the hopes of finding some old ones. I was so excited to give them to my mom. I knew they would make her so happy and that she would forgive me instantly. When I got home that night, I gave her the jewelry I had stolen for her, and her reaction was even better than I had hoped. Her eyes teared up immediately, and she gave me the biggest hug she ever had. Oh, honey, how could you ever afford these? This is so unbelievably sweet. You did not have to do this. I found a good deal. Don't worry about it, Mom. You deserve it and more. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. We hugged and cried, sharing a beautiful moment together. That night, we watched our favorite movie and ordered a delicious dinner. We stayed up until the early hours of the morning, talking and laughing at silly movies. The next afternoon, we were woken up by a pounding on the door. Police, open up. Mom rushed to the door, having no idea what was going on. My heart started to pound. I was certain that the jig was up and I had been caught. There must have been a security camera somewhere, I thought, and now I was busted. When my mom answered the door in the jewelry I had taken for her, the police immediately arrested her. They told me that she had stolen the jewelry and that I would have to go live with my father. I knew I couldn't go live with him. So after the police left, when I was supposed to be waiting on an agent to come take me to my father, I ran away. I ran to the prison to see my mother, to confess and ask her what to do. When I got there, she told me she knew about everything, but she wasn't going to tell the police. She held back tears as she told me to run and lay low. I sighed. I knew what I had to do. I went to the police and confessed everything. They arrested me on the spot and released my mother. She couldn't believe what I had done. Through her tears, she said, "This was too much, Haley. I just wanted a normal life for you. I get to talk to all the weirdos that I want. I don't have to escape at night to explore and act out. Any new adventure I need can be found talking to the people around me."